Pross here once again. What is going on?
I said, what's going on?
We have to find out what is going on.
What the hell is going on?
Too much energy for you guys? I don't know. Drink some coffee and do some jumping jacks, because today, not tomorrow, today we're going to be doing something that I don't think anyone's really done before. As a very fortunate owner of 4 motorcycles, I realized a couple weeks back that by chance, each one of my motorcycles has a very different engine configuration. That's right. By some miracle, I have attained the holy grail of motorcycle ownership. We have a single cylinder, parallel twin, inline triple, and inline quadruple engine in the stable. This is like when Yu-Gi-Oh! Summoned Exodia.
Impossible! I've assembled all 5 special cards, all 5 pieces of the puzzle.
God, man, what are the kids into these days, man? Oh, it's like when Thanos collected all of the Fruity Pebbles for his gauntlet. But that's enough pandering to younger viewers, because we're going to be riding all these engine configurations back to back to back to back to back, giving you guys my opinions on the characteristics of these engines and how they compare to one another. And hopefully, this will give you some important insight that will help you when purchasing either your first or your next motorcycle. So, let's get to it. Alright guys, so to kick things off, we're first going to be talking about the characteristics of each of these engine types and where they're typically used in the motorcycling world. The single-cylinder engine configuration has a lot of grunt and torque at the lower end of the engine's rev range, but falls flat on its face at higher revs. Typically used in dirt bikes, dual sports, adventure bikes, and very small displacement motorcycles, the low-end grunt of these engines lends itself well to applications that require moving heavy loads at low speeds, which could mean young Johnny climbing hills on his dirt bike or Rahiraha trying to get that go home for supper. Either way, you get the point. It also makes wheelies fairly easy to pop and control. You'll get a rush of power upon initial acceleration, but the engine's power and pull quickly tapers off towards redline. Twin-cylinder engine, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the most popular engine configurations on the market, and for good reason. Used in a wide range of bikes from adventure bikes, cruisers, Harleys, beginner motorcycles, and all the way up to super sports, these engines are like a Drake song. You see them everywhere. They seem confused about what their style is, but gosh darn it, there's some good ones. All men know good things come in pairs, except maybe shoes from ASOS, and twin-cylinder engines are just that, as they tend to have power everywhere in the rev range, and in my experience, build the most linear power of any other engine configuration. These engines are punchy everywhere in their rev range and will pick up and go at any point, and keep the power strong until redline, but don't seem to have the crazy surge of power found in 3 and 4 cylinder engines. The only obvious downside to this engine configuration is that unless you're riding a 1299 Panigale, which has a significant displacement bump to compete with the top end power of 1000cc 4-cylinder engines, there is a lack of drama and excitement when revving the engine out. It's a no BS, no surprise engine configuration with usable power everywhere. The 3-cylinder is an oddball engine configuration, predominantly used in street-oriented sport bikes. The triple-cylinder engine strikes a pretty even balance in every respect between the characteristics of a twin and 4-cylinder. It's kind of like 40 Smith & Wesson or spicy ketchup, meaning you kind of really couldn't decide if you wanted to go full beans or not, and you didn't want to go baby beans, if that makes sense. But it's an awesome middle ground choice. This tends to be a rare engine to encounter, and I never really understood that. In my experience, the 3-cylinder engine stays pretty linear between 1 and 8,000 RPM and feels very similar to a twin engine configuration in terms of low-end pull and linear power. But once it hits 8,000 RPM, there is an absolute surge of power that comes in even quicker than a 4-cylinder. It's very comparable to a turbocharged vehicle and gives an element of drama to revving out the engine that is very different than anything else out there. Surge of power this engine delivers isn't as strong as a 4-cylinder and doesn't build for quite as long, but it does come on quicker. Power kind of tapers off towards the very top end of the rev range, but there is an unmistakable hit and sweet spot in the way this engine delivers power that you will love to play with. The 4-cylinder configuration is the engine choice that means boom skedaddle-doo, you just went full hot rod, boy. You better have good health insurance. Typically used in predominantly super sport motorcycles, this is another very popular engine configuration, and for good reason. In my opinion, 4-cylinder configurations are the epitome of the motorcycle experience. 4 cylinders build power in the most exciting way that will have you laughing maniacally in your helmet, half out of bewilderment and half out of straight up fear the first time you rev one out completely. Used at the highest levels of motorcycle racing, these engines were built to be ridden at full tilt on a racetrack and build insane power. Lower in the rev range, this engine is very docile, still quick but laggy and dull compared to its top end. Keep on the throttle though and the power just keeps on building the entire way until you're screaming and cursing and laughing out of disbelief at yourself in your helmet. I'm getting excited typing this out, just imagining it. So now we're going to be talking about one of the most important aspects of an engine for me, and that is, how does it feel through the curves? How does it feel mid-corner? Single cylinder engines feel excellent in tight, lower speed corners due to their lightweight and low end punch. They pull hard in the lower and mid rev range out of corners with no real surprises if you're not doing anything dumb. However, these engines will feel too revved out and won't have much pull if you pitch it into corners in the higher revs or if you're riding very fast corners. Throttle input is very lenient and there's plenty of room for mistakes with these engines mid-corner. Twin cylinder engines pull hard everywhere in their rev range, and for this reason they feel fantastic in everything from low to high speed corners. Another fantastic trait of these engines is the very linear power delivery they make, which means throttle input is pretty straightforward and is fairly lenient with mistakes depending on displacement. They have a relatively easy to manage and very satisfying top end pull out of corners, especially when compared to single cylinder configurations. The triple cylinder configuration requires a bit of skill to manage mid-corner, but feels amazing in intermediate and high-speed corners and is quite manageable and fun in low-speed corners. Less experienced or cautious riders can utilize the mild low-end power mid-corner and wait until after exiting the corner to utilize the power surge up top, but experienced and track day riders will always want to be in this power band, pitching the bike into corners at higher revs, utilizing that surge of power up top the entire time. This engine definitely does not have a lenient power build and will bite you if you're not careful. The 4-cylinder engine is incredible mid-corner and feels like it was crafted specifically to be there. Because it was, and has a completely nutty and very racy power build that requires a lot of respect, attention, precision, and control to command. Riders with some sanity and sense in their noodles will utilize lower to mid rev range through corners where power is relatively predictable and, legal? As you can tell by the footage, even my dumbass who rides with no gear still respects the power this engine configuration makes at the top end, and I avoid higher RPMs mid-corner. But if you're just a complete twat, or on a track, or just that damn good though, you can ride corners at the top end of the rev range and be an absolute missile out of corners. Alright guys, so next conversation topic, we're going to be talking about how these engines feel on the highway, which is probably where these motorcycles are going to be spending the majority of their time. Single cylinder engines, due to vibrations and a lack of top end pull, are the most uncomfortable engine configurations on the highway, both power and feel wise. I mean, unless you're into vibrations, in which case, not horrible, but definitely not the best. These engines at highway speeds are typically revved out pretty high, and giving the bike gas, depending on engine size, won't do much in terms of acceleration, making passing cars a bit of a chore. Twin cylinder engines make a world of difference on the highway compared to single cylinders in terms of smoothness and power at speed. These engines will build strong power through the whole rev range, making pulls and passing maneuvers at highway speeds easy, comfortable, and fun, though not very exciting. These engines make the best all-around commuters in my opinion due to their strong, predictable power delivery, their smoothness at speed, and their great gas mileage. The exceptions for this is going to be V-twins and Harleys, which are actually pretty shaky and aren't very stellar in terms of miles per gallon. The triple cylinder configuration was my engine of choice for commuting 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 years. These engines are quite a bit smoother than twin cylinders and have a strong and more thrilling power delivery at speed. Dropping 2 gears right into the power hit and hearing that peculiar mix of growl and scream through the exhaust as you surge forward and pass cars with this engine will never fail to put a smile on your face. The only drawback to this engine is the slightly lower miles per gallon when compared to twin cylinder engines, but for me it's miles per gallon versus miles per gallon any day. The 4-cylinder configuration, ironically, is the smoothest and strongest of all 4 on the highway at speed and would make a great commuter if it weren't for the fact that these engines are usually stuffed into racing-style bikes with very aggressive riding positions, hot exhaust, and wooden plank for seats. The engine will feel comfortable on the highway, but you sure as hell won't. There are some exceptions, however, and nothing can really compare to the feeling of winding one of these engines out on the highway, but on the flip side of that coin, nothing really compares to the feeling of having to take the bus to work every day because you lost your license. Alright guys, so the last thing that we're going to be doing today is giving you guys a summary of my general opinions on each one of these engine configurations, and we're going to be listing them from my least favorite to my most favorite. So, let's get to it, boy! The single-cylinder engine configuration, in my opinion, is a hooligan's engine configuration. It's loud, buzzy, throaty, revvy, light, and quick to wheelie. The way it makes power is just fun. There's no surprises, no worries, it's strong, and there is almost no need to hold back or check yourself mentally while using it. It's addicting to use also since you will wring its neck day in and day out legally. Your neighbors won't love you pounding through the gears to redline on the side streets, but you sure will. My WR250R is my favorite motorcycle that I own, right next to my CBR 1000 RR, and the two live at very different ends of the spectrum. My WR250R is pure carefree hooliganism, and honestly, I don't have much respect for the engine and the power it makes. The bike is just a toy for me, and I'll beat on it day in and day out at full tilt constantly. The con to this engine for me though is its unmistakable lack of top-end power and its vibrations. Back in the day, when I only had the resources to own one motorcycle, the triple-cylinder engine configuration was perfect for me and the Triumph Street Triple was my baby. I was commuting 2 hours each day back then, so its strong power down low, smooth engine ride, and awesome power on the highway were essential for me. At the same time, I love to go canyon carving with my pops, and utilizing that incredible surge of power from 8 to 12,000 RPM comes on stronger than a boozed out uncle at a family party to power out of corners was an amazing feeling. It ticked every box for me. It was an awesome commuter while at the same time being a thrilling canyon carver on the weekend. But nowadays that I don't commute anymore and I have a full thoroughbred fire-breathing race bike in my collection whose insane surge of power and thrills the Street Triple could never really compete with, there isn't really a place in my stable for this engine configuration. But if your situation is anything like mine was back in the day, and you can only have one motorcycle for both needs, it's a solid choice. Smooth, strong, a bit rare and quirky while also being terrifically exciting, triple cylinder engines are something everyone should experience at some point. The twin cylinder engine configuration, in my opinion, is a versatile workhorse engine out of the bunch, while also retaining quite a bit of the hooligan characteristics of the single cylinder engine, as it's easy to wheelie and fun to beat on without much worry of going full hot rod and violating the rear end of a Prius with your face. It's used in multiple types of motorcycles and for good reason. These engines make strong, constant power from idle all the way to redline and sound fantastic. My favorite part about these engines is that there isn't really a dull spot or a power surge in the power band. There's just power everywhere. Predictable, manageable, and fun. There isn't really a con to these engines except that when compared to a 4-cylinder or 3-cylinder, they are a bit lackluster in the excitement department. Last but not least, my favorite motorcycle engine configuration out of the bunch, the 4-cylinder. Remember 2 cylinders ago when we were talking about usable power on the street? This ain't it, Chief. Now, to get things straight, the 4-cylinder engine configuration on the road is not that bad in theory. But when has theory ever stopped you from doing something stupid? 4-cylinder engines actually feel pretty docile and linear in the lower revs, but once you hit the power band up in the higher third of the rev range, you will realize, if you haven't already wiped out mid-corner or rearranged the back end of a Prius, that these bikes build power not linearly but exponentially. We're going to throw up a graph in case you forgot 7th grade math. And while actual dyno graphs might not reflect that, that's how it's going to freaking feel. And it's dangerous and illegal. And on top of that, it's addicting. And on top of that, as we complete this doo-doo on the 4-cylinder engine sandwich, it's realistically unusable 99% of the time on the street. From a legal perspective, of course. You might have mad skittles and can handle it. And it's pretty frustrating not being able to fully utilize your bike. But like I said, even after going over all of these cons, it's still my favorite because these engines are the quintessential motorcycle engine, as they embody the spirit of motorcycling so well. The elements of soul, electrifying excitement, and thrill combined with the struggle to maintain control is something you can't really find anywhere else. The sensation of speed that you get, like you're not only flying, but that you're a rocket ship or a bullet out of a gun. That indescribable, intangible it feeling that makes you feel alive as every emotion and sensation in your body is turned up to 11, along with that element of fear and overcoming that, which I feel is very close to the heart of motorcycling. All of these feelings and many more encompass the 4-cylinder engine. To this day, the 4-cylinder motorcycles I ride are the only ones that I'm still scared of. So it's not for the faint of heart or for those just starting out. You can get into a lot of trouble with these bikes, and all in all, it's genuinely impractical and unreasonable. But for me, that's what's at the core of being a human, and is doing things not because it's smart, practical, or reasonable, but because you feel something. And for me, that's the 4-cylinder engine. Alright guys, that about wraps up our video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got some useful information on motorcycles. Whether you're looking to make that first purchase or you're just curious about motorcycles in general. You know, if this video in any way inspired you to maybe get a motorcycle in the future, or, you know, just helped you make a more informed purchasing decision now, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to see stuff like that. It's the reason why I do these videos. So yeah, but if you enjoyed, please feel free to subscribe. It's a new channel, but we have some cool ideas coming up, some cool things that we're going to be doing, and I'd like to see you there for it. So yeah, and as always, stay enthusiastic, my friends. Have a lovely day. Valen Pross signing out.
Try me, bitch.
I'll see you on the next one.